Okay, hey there, second graders. We are here to go over day 4 now. So if you are ready, we'll jump right into morning work. Except it didn't change on the board. Oh, there we go. Just making sure you were paying attention. All right, so we're finishing up old Brandy's life out in the Midwest today. This is the last component of morning work for language and math, and we'll talk more about what that's going to look like tomorrow. It's just what it says, good morning word review. So our last part says, Brandy went to school and after lunch she researched the life of a buffalo. She finished her paper and then shared it with the class. What did Brandy do before she researched the buffalo? So I can go back in my text here and find where she researched the life of a buffalo. But let me go back and see what she did before she did that. It said she went to school and after lunch she researched the life of a buffalo. So if you put Brandy went to school, I don't necessarily think that's wrong because she did go to school before she researched the buffalo. But what they might have been looking for here would be what she did right before she researched the buffalo, which would have been ate lunch. But again, if you wrote went to school or you wrote went to school and ate lunch, I'm thinking that's correct. So number 2 says, after reading this week's passage about Brandy, why did she research the buffalo? You could have put anything along the lines of, it was an animal she was interested in from the Midwest. It was an animal she didn't know very much about. So those are different reasons why she wanted to research them. And then this last part is asking you to make a timeline of your life. We talked about timeline real briefly on Monday with the timeline of George Washington, which I told you was just a line, quite literally a line, where we would put different years of important years of things that happened in your life. So if I were making one from my life, I would write 1989. Born. I could write another important date could be 2013 is when I got married. I could put 2015 and 2019 when I had kids. You could put different things like when you were born, when you got your first pet, when you lost your first tooth. Anything important like that would go on your timeline with the different years labeled throughout. Okay? And then on the math side, so go ahead and flip over. Let's look at this array they gave us here with our equal rows and columns. And there are 2 different addition equations you could have written to go with this. And if you were a super hard worker, I bet you wrote both. So the first one we could have written if we went by rows, which go from side to side, would have been 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 8. And if we had gone by columns, which go up and down, we would have written 4 plus 4 equals 8. Both of those are correct. They both match the array here. All right, so 62 minus 48. Always, always, always start with your ones. I cannot solve 2 minus 8, so I've got to go next door, making my 6 a 5. And my 2 a 12. And 12 minus 8 gives me 4. And 5 minus 4 gives me 1. 14. And then 44 plus 25. 4 plus 5 gives me 9. 4 plus 2 gives me 6. So my answer is 69. All right. With our pattern, they're asking us to count by tens. So after 210 would be 220, 10 more would be 230, 240, then 250, then 260. Finally, drawing the hands on the clock. Clock is something that we haven't really talked about in depth this school year, but have mentioned on morning work throughout the whole year. A rule I like to use with my class to remember the difference between the hour and the minute hand is hour is a smaller word or shorter word than minute. So the hour hand is the shorter or smaller hand. And the minute hand, since the word minute is longer, is going to be the longer hand. So let's get started with our minutes first. So our minutes is 15, which I know I count by fives for my minutes around the clock. So I've got 5, 10, 15. So my longer minute hand is going to point at that 3. And then for 9, now if it were exactly 9 o'clock, 9 hour, 0 minutes, my hour hand would point directly at the 9. If I was at 30 minutes, which is halfway through the hour, my hour hand would be halfway between 9 and 10. But because 15 is only like a quarter ways through the clock, my hour hand is going to be pretty close to pointing straight at 9, but maybe just a little bit past it. That's hard to do when you're having to write it by yourself. Okay, but while I get this erased, you can go ahead and grab your Season of Spring comprehension page to go over next. All right, here we go. Now, some of these, when I was going through to make the key for this, some of these were very easy to note text evidence to answer the questions. And then some of them were not. Some of them were a little bit trickier, having to infer a lot, which that's okay. That's why we're going over it together. So I'm going to start with my blue. And again, remember, if you don't have all these colors, you're welcome to number it. And then just put that number next to the text evidence that you highlighted or underlined. So if we look back in our story, which I'm not going to read to you again, the first paragraph is kind of just introducing spring. It's telling us kind of what happens with the weather, some different things with the animals, and then our second paragraph explains the spring season as in like the equinox, what it means with the axis of the earth being tilted towards the sun in our hemisphere. And then the last one here talks about when it's spring in our country, or in our hemisphere, it's the opposite, which gets a little cooler fall in the southern hemisphere because it's tilting further away from the sun. So remembering kind of the main topic of each paragraph is going to help us to go back and answer questions throughout this. So blue, who wakes up in the spring? I can go back to my first paragraph and highlight my evidence that animals are awakened from hibernation. And again, I told you this on Monday, I believe, one of those days, that you are welcome to write the answer down here if you want to, but it's definitely not something that everyone requires you to do. Totally up to you whether you want to do that or not. I still don't have yellow, so we are switching yellow to pink. Okay, so this was a tricky one, and I think whoever made this was purposely trying to make sure you were paying attention. So it's asking which season precedes spring. Now, this word right here is going to be key to answering this question, precedes. So if I look at the first sentence in my second paragraph, it says spring is a season which follows winter and precedes or comes before summer. So it's really important for us to understand what the word precedes means here. And it says precedes, or context clues, comes before. So precedes means, I'm going to write this so I don't forget, comes before. So this question is asking us which season comes before spring. Now, if you just read this text, you probably saw spring is a season which follows winter and precedes summer. So I bet you originally, like me, thought that the answer was summer because it says precedes summer. But it's actually asking us which season precedes spring. So the season that comes before spring is a season which follows winter. We just got finished with winter, remember, and now we're coming into spring. So the season that precedes or comes before spring is winter, and spring precedes summer, comes before summer. Summer precedes fall, fall precedes winter, so on and so forth. So that was a tricky one. Miss Jersey almost messed that up when she was going through it to make sure I knew all the right answers. This red one was also another one where we really had to infer. There was not a clear, in my opinion, clear answer to highlight to prove evidence to answer this one. So the red one is asking us, where are seasons more similar to one another? Now, the answer to this is the different hemispheres. Because if we look back in paragraph kind of 2 and 3, let's go to 3 first, where it says, when it is spring in one hemisphere, the other celebrates fall. So the earth, is broken up into the northern half, the northern hemisphere, the southern half, the southern hemisphere. And it mentions the northern hemisphere here. So the seasons are more similar to one another in the north and south hemisphere. So all the countries that are in the northern hemisphere have seasons similar to each other, and all the seasons in the southern hemisphere have seasons similar to each other. And that has to do with the earth on that axis. When it's spring, we are the north part of the globe are pointed towards the sun, getting a little bit warmer, days are a little bit longer, but the southern half of the globe is pointed away, so they're all similarly in fall where it's a little bit cooler and darker. So that was a tricky one. Don't feel bad if you struggled with that one. All right, and then for the next one, I am going to go back and find, why does the sun face one hemisphere longer? Why does the sun face one hemisphere longer? All right, and that's going to be in paragraph 2, where it says, because of, this one's not showing up very well, because of the way the earth is tilted on its axis, the sun will spend more time directly facing the northern hemisphere. Let me grab another one real quick. All right, so again, that was in paragraph 2, where it said, because of the way the earth is tilted on its axis, the sun will spend more time directly facing the northern hemisphere during spring, or the southern hemisphere during its fall. So why does the sun face one hemisphere longer? Because of the axis tilt, or the way the earth is tilted on its axis. Okay? For this green one, I actually found several different pieces of evidence kind of all over the story for how the weather changes in spring. And if you've got this runny nose and sneezing and all that, you definitely know how the weather's changing in spring right now. So one of the first things I saw, I'm just looking for evidence of weather. I've got the sun stays out longer, rain falls frequently. Let's see, some other ones I found were more hours of sunlight, warmer weather, longer, warmer days. Lots of different pieces of evidence having to do with weather kind of all over. So we could write warmer, sunny, and we could have something to do with rain on there too, how it rains frequently. So those are some different ways that the weather changes. And then last one is asking us, when is the spring equinox? Again, it does not say the spring equinox is on blah, blah, blah. We have to do a little inferring here too, but we can use this keyword equinox to help us out, which is going to be in paragraph 2. I see here they're actually calling it the March equinox, but we can infer based on what we read that we know spring happens in March. So we know that the March equinox is the same thing, inferring, as the spring equinox. So I can see the March equinox falls around March 20th, which is soon, or actually today. All right, so that's going to be everything for that page. Give you just a second if you need to pause on that to get any of those answers done or corrected or anything. Okay, hopefully everything on Study Island is going super smoothly for you guys. Again, can't reiterate enough. If you have questions about that, please don't just give up on it and not even attempt it. Get with your teacher. We are chomping at the bit to help you guys as much as we can right now. So this is day 4. So you're going to hop on those active assignments and hopefully see Study Island ELA day 4. All right, so that's our ELA portion for today. Let's have a look at math. So for math, we're going to fill in these quick facts real quick. All right, so we've got 9, adding 3, 15, 27, 6, 18, 29, 12, 21, and 33. Now, for this next section, I want to explain just a couple of things because it's going to be hard for you and I to possibly have the same answers on a little bit of this. I want us to focus just a second on this word estimation. Now, estimation just means you're making your best guess, using what you know about centimeters, inches, feet, yards. You're making your best guess. Now, I didn't love that they didn't specifically give us units of measurement to work with on this because I'm sure several of you are wondering, should I estimate in inches? Should I estimate in feet or yards? And my answer to that would be I would estimate using your best judgment. I would use the length of unit that you think best fits. So for example, for a length of a pencil, this is actually the pencil that I use to measure. The best unit of measurement for me to use for this pencil is not gonna be feet or yards because it's smaller than any of those. So my best judgment for this one would be to use inches. So estimation is just gonna be what you guessed the length of your pencil to be. And we might not get the same exact measurement because we probably didn't use the same pencil and our rulers might be off just a little bit too. For actual measurement on my pencil, I got 7 inches. And again, that was just my best judgment to use that unit of measurement for that object. Now, for the height of this paper, it's referring to the tall height, how tall it is. So whatever you guessed, I measured it and I got, again, my best judgment would be to use inches, and I got 11 when I measured mine. Remember to start at the 0 on your ruler. Now, for a height of a chair, this is where we're going to be a little off because my chairs might not be the same height as your chairs. I used one of the just regular chairs that we have here in the classroom, and I got about 3 feet because, again, my best judgment was to use feet for that because it was a little bit bigger than inches, but not quite big enough to use a yardstick. And then length of a book is kind of going to have to depend on what book you use. There's going to be lots of different ways. Depends on if it's a little chapter book or a little board book that belongs to you or a really big picture book. But the length is going to be that long side of that book. And then finally, the length of your pinky. I did measure mine, and on that, I switched to inches, and I got 2 inches. So it's cool to see if your estimation or your guess is close to what you actually got. Okay, so last part of this is going to be to answer the eraser word problem at the bottom. We are cruising right through. All right, last one. It says that Benji measured an eraser, and it is 4 inches long. He measured a pencil, and it was 2 erasers long. How many inches long is the pencil? So 1 eraser equals 4 inches. So he said he measured a pencil. Here's my best pencil. Not too bad. He measured a pencil and it was 2 erasers long. So it was 1 eraser, 1 eraser. Okay, so I know that 1 eraser was 4 inches. So when I add 4 plus 4, I get 8. So the pencil is 8 inches long. Okay? Now, what we just did together was Module 7, Lesson 17. So your directions now are to get on Zearn and complete the Lesson 17 work to unlock Lesson 18, which is what we'll be going over tomorrow. So complete the 17 practice, get 18 unlocked, and we'll complete that tomorrow. And then finally after that is to hop on Study Island. Today again is day 4. So you want to go to your active assignments and complete Study Island Math day 4. Okay, so that's it. That's all we have for today. We'll be back with you shortly for day 5.